Welcome to Legends in Leadership, brought to you by ISF and the Carrington Group. Legends in Leadership is an inspirational podcast featuring the stories of leaders who are making a difference. Our goal is to inspire you with the stories of leaders who come from humble beginnings, overcome challenges, and ultimately rise up to make a difference in people's lives.
Welcome to Legends in Leadership. This is Jason Smith, your host for today's episode, and also a family officer with the Carrington Group. My co-hosts today are Dr. Blair Ritchie, Executive Director of the International Student Foundation, and Tyler Tallman, also a family officer with the Carrington Group. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Good to be here.
Well, we, as always, are going to start off with a little bit of leadership trivia from Dr. Blair Ritchie. What do you have for us today?
You guys have been awesome lately by guessing who the trivia leader is. So I've decided I'm going to get one today that is going to be really hard. And I know you don't have your buddy Kyle here to bail you out, so you guys are going to have to dig deep into your. So let's go back in history a little bit. This is the 24th of October. We're recording this, and this is the day that was known as Black Tuesday. Back in 1929, it was the first day when the stock market started to crash, and the Roaring '20s quickly turned into the Great Depression. Well, today's legendary leader was one of the iconic business leaders who tried to stem the fall of the market, but like so many, saw his personal fortune turn to bankruptcy. He was a high school dropout as a lad and went to work in his father's lumber yard. After selling cigars, he got involved in the horse-drawn carriage business where he made his first million. With the advent of the automobile, this entrepreneurial leader envisioned the creation of a large automobile company which would manufacture several independent marques and control subsidiary component-making companies. He started out assuming control of what was a troubled Buick Motor Company, then bought a brand named Cadillac, Oldsmobile, and something I didn't know, the Oakland Car Company, and brought them under the banner of General Motors. In the 1920s, he was a major player on Wall Street, and on Black Tuesday, he joined the Rockefellers and other financial giants to buy large quantities of stock to demonstrate to the public their confidence in the market. Unfortunately, it was a bad idea. Their efforts failed to stop the slide, and by 1936, our leader was out of money and could never recover that golden touch. Who is this legendary leader? I'll be back at the close of the program with today's
Talking
answer.
about a rise and a fall and a rise and a fall.
He had many of them.
Wow. Sounds like it.
Yes, he did.
Well, I'm excited to introduce our guest today, and really looking forward to where this conversation takes us with Angie Lee Monroe. She's an international speaker, strategist, and consultant whose expertise guides people to identify and obliterate obstacles. Her innovative approach will align you with strategic partnerships, activate your purpose, and calibrate your potential to encounter even more opportunities. Angie is the founder of Divas Impact and Veteran Divas, and the host of Warrior Divas, Real Talk for Women podcast. Angie is a native Texan, Navy veteran, and executive director with the John Maxwell team. Angie and her husband Michael met while in the Navy. They have 3 children, 2 grandchildren, and several other fake kids. Fake kids, which is where I want to start today's podcast, Angie. So welcome to the show.
You were a fake kid.
I was one of those.
Yeah.
Please tell us what a fake kid is.
Well, we had a group of kids that lived with us off and on throughout the time my kids were growing up, that either they were a single parent home or they were struggling at home. Their parents didn't know what to do, and they came and lived with us. Mm-hmm. And the very first one was when my son was in kindergarten, and I took him to school one day, and I took my son to his class, and I took Brandon to his class, and the teacher said, "Brandon, who's this with you today?" And he goes, "That's my fake mom." And so from that moment forward, the 12 to 13, 14, 15 other kids that we had come through our home, I became fake mom. They they became fake kids, because we were never trying to replace their parents.
Right.
We were just trying to reinforce the structure they needed in their lives.
And your grocery bill went way up, I'm assuming.
Oh yes. I don't know how many listen that are familiar with the Tarrant County, Dallas-Fort Worth area, but we do Trinity High School. So, and my kids played sports, which means they were friends with all the athletes. And so there's nothing like making 10 pounds of hamburger meat into meatloafs.
Oh, gosh.
Because you've got that many people
For
sitting
one
around the
night.
table. Yes, for one night. And you're using the industrial school cafeteria pots to make
great.
your mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. Well, we do like to learn a little bit about upbringing and early influences in people's lives. And so, was there something early on in your life that opened your heart to be that kind of fake parent to these young people?
I would say it was definitely my parents' influence. My dad was a police officer, and my mom stayed home with us up until I went into junior high. And it was nothing to wake up in the middle of the night and find a homeless person that my dad had brought home so that they could get a shower, a warm meal, get their clothes washed, and mom would just talk with them and really just pour out. We did a lot of community involvement. Of course, every time the church doors were open, we were at church. That was a big influence as well. But my parents just really had us see that our neighbors truly were our neighbors and we could help them out. And if we saw it, we had the ability to make a positive influence in their life.
What city was he a police officer in?
In Euless.
Okay.
Yeah, so
born and bred and stuck around and continued to serve in that community.
exactly. My dad had been there from 1950 until he moved to Arkansas to retire 3 years ago. And I came home from the hospital to Euless, and later on in my life, I traveled around the world, and I came right back to Euless, and I love it. It's a small community, but it's a big town right in the middle of such a huge metroplex here.
Yeah.
But it's about building that community and then having that have a ripple effect to everything else that I do.
I'm curious, do you and your dad ever have any conversation about, we're in a pretty tumultuous time for especially our police forces and our first responders. Do you guys ever have any conversation about his perspective on that and the challenges of being a police officer in today's age?
I think it's interesting because I have a lot of friends that are police officers. Like I said, my dad being a police officer, I was either babysat by their wives or I babysat a bunch of the kids that are now police officers.
Yeah.
The thing that I get overwhelmingly is there are some people out there that are doing bad things. Some of them wear the badge, some of them don't wear the badge. But all in all, he's more frustrated with the door where some of the police are opening for that scrutiny to come. But then he gets frustrated with the ones that come on and say, the police are all bad, the police are all this, because that's not the police force that I know. My dad was a very merciful man. He was very firm, he was very strong, he was very powerful, but he was a very merciful person. And a lot of the good officers out there are very merciful people. And lumping them all together, it kind of goes with talking about some of the stuff we're going to talk about later on. If you lump a whole generalization of a group together, you're not allowing for misactions by the bad people that probably should have never worn the badge.
Right.
And there are times that he'll watch a news story and it'll be interesting, and I'll hear him go, "Yep, they should be gone." And then there will be times he probably should have never had a badge, or what the heck was he thinking? You know?
Right.
And then there's times that he's going, this is just going to be bad. And, we grew up knowing don't judge everything by the media, what the media is presenting, because the media has a certain snapshot of what happened. But we've got to get all the relevant evidence in. And just like the police officers, just like the criminals that are criminals every day of the week, the police officers still deserve due justice. Now, we got to figure out what due justice looks like for the badge.
Yeah.
Right. Well, another topic, clearly the Navy had a strong influence in your life, especially as you've moved into helping veterans. What was the path to join the Navy?
I wanted to be a speaker, and I wanted to be out on talking to everybody and teaching. I would give my little stuffed animals the motivational talks growing up, and we had a galley kitchen. I'd go walking through the galley kitchen, and at the end there were swinging doors open, and I'd walk out like I'm walking out on stage, waving like Zig Ziglar used to do, and all the Mary Kay Ash. And when I was in high school, I had a drama instructor tell me that my accent was a little too hick, and that as long as I sounded like a hick, I'd never amount to anything.
Oh, wow.
So I gave up my desire to speak at that time. Wow. And Top Gun had just come out, the best recruiting tool for the Navy at the time. Yeah. And I said, I want to go in the Navy. And my godfather, who was in the Navy, told me to go talk to all 4 branches before I signed up. And I did. And I went over there, and I found myself in a lot of ways, and I lost myself in a lot of ways. I learned how strong I could be on my own without all the family support. But I also learned that my judgment at that time in my life, being in my early 20s, was probably not always the best judgment in mind, too. And that's what's led me to the Veteran Divas, is a lot of the young girls that are getting in and getting out, they've experienced some of that, and we want to be able to help them get back on the right path again.
So what is that experience of a young woman joining a very heavily male-dominated environment where there is a high-stress environment as well? Tell us a little bit about what you learned and how you learned to operate in those spaces.
I'd say I was doing really good through boot camp. I excelled in boot camp. I went through A school. I excelled there. It was when I got to my duty station, and it was in Rota, Spain. And 16 days after I got there, they quote-unquote declared war for Desert Storm. And that's when I realized, all right, the pudding just hit the fan. So, I want my mommy.
Right.
And during all that process, there were the mindset that I was a guy with long hair. If I worked as hard as the guys did, there was no difference between me and the guys. But when other girls tried to join our shop, I was their harshest critic on them because I didn't want them making me look bad. Instead of helping them, I was harder on them than any of the guys were. Okay. And if the guys were hard on them, I would chew out the guys or guys were easy on them, I would chew out the guys for being too easy on them. So I did a lot of self-sabotaging, and I did a lot of female sabotaging while I was in there. Also, while I was in there, I suffered a personal setback with a sexual assault that happened, and really just kind of felt like everything in my life had shifted. And where I had felt bold and strong and confident and knew what I was doing at work, everything in my personal life was falling apart. And that happens more times than we'd like to admit, not just to women veterans, but to men veterans too. And so I took a lot of time when I came out of the Navy to really figure out if I was going to stuff and suppress that for the rest of my life, or if I was going to get healing for what happened to me, and if there could be healing for what happened to me, because there's PTSD that comes from that. Absolutely. We didn't know that's what it was called back in the time. Now they have a new phrase called MST for military sexual trauma that gives them a disability rating. Okay. So we're making progress within our ranks to take care of our veterans, but we're not quite there yet. Right. And so we wanted to provide a place that the women could reach out, say, hey, this happened to me. No, I didn't file a report, because there's a lot of them that are out there that never filed a report, so they're not getting any of the benefits from the VA. Okay. So we can help walk them through those steps to, whether it's from them being in combat, whether it's from a sexual trauma, whether it's from just being harassed in their workplace. I mean, that happens nonstop. And it's something that has become more of a championing for me, because I see these women walking out with chips on their shoulders, and I'm like, are you going to carry that around for the rest of your life? Yeah. I see it. Let's deal with it. Let's not just have it there as a form of this is my story, don't mess with me. Let's go, this is my story, and I can help you walk out your own.
What helped you with a breakthrough to that path? Because not everybody gets there.
Not everybody gets there, and for me, I went through I'm a woman of faith, so getting into the Word really helped me a lot, but it didn't do quite everything for me, to be honest.
Right.
I needed to go to a counselor that would say, that's a lie right there.
Mm-hmm.
You need to not believe that. You need to realize that you've built up your own fantasy world around lies that you're believing. I also sat in a small group with other women, and we went through a course called Mending the Soul. And if you could ever get people on that wrote that program, it's an amazing program that helped us sit in a room and really talk about our story. Not just say, this happened to me, stuff and suppress. This happened to me, stuff and suppress. It brought it up. We say it's like going through cancer. The first 5 weeks of the course, you don't want to talk it. You walk in, you have your book holding up close to your chest. They ask you a question from the study that week. You crack it open, and you go, well, I answered this, and that's all you want to say. Mm-hmm. But by the end of it, you're holding that book up over your head going, this is my story. This is my victory. I am better because I faced what was impacting me. And I'll never forget when I knew for sure there was a change. I was sitting not too far from here at a hotel, and there was a break in the event I was at, and I went to the hotel restaurant, and I'm sitting at a table, and I looked up, and the wall was in front of me, and my back was to the door and to the entrance of the restaurant and the hotel. And I started giggling because in 20 plus years I had not sat with my back to an open door, because I was always on guard.
Right.
And all I could do was giggle with relief that there was that I had come through, and I could really celebrate the storm that I had endured.
We're able to truly let go of some of those things.
There's such a stigma too to folks to know they hear a psychologist or they hear a therapist, or and that automatically is tied to this negative connotation that's out there. But the reality of it is that we're all carrying some piece of luggage with us, and we have to unpack that bag.
Right.
And so the idea of regular maintenance for yourself, your marriage, your friends, your business relationships, there's nothing wrong with it. It's no different than changing the oil in your car. You've got to do the same for yourself. So,
well, and psychiatrists and counselors, they talk to other psychiatrists and counselors because the things that get brought into their office that they need to talk about, they need a place to pull it apart and unpack it and not carry it with them. And it's huge to take care of your own self. Lead yourself first before you try to lead others.
Right. So I'm curious what you would have told the early 20s Angie if you were coaching her today, and she's trying to be a man with long hair in that space. So what would you have coached Angie to do differently in those roles?
We have a magazine that we put out, and our magazine for the August edition was Embracing Life's Storms. And when we wanted to put that magazine out, I really wanted the title of the magazine to be Embracing the Suck. It's a military term. We talk about it all the time. But what I wanted that to conjure up was, don't run from the storms of your life. To really embrace them, learn from them, push through them, persevere, have the resilience to know that this too will pass. I mean, we're sitting here not far from where tornadoes went through the other day, and they went through pretty quick. Now, you may have some aftermath after that storm, but you get out, you clean up, you pick up, you move on, and you put one foot in front of the other each and every day. You're never going to forget that moment.
Right.
You're never going to not be able to see the destruction in that moment, but you will be able to see a rebuilding of yourself, a rebuilding of the things around you. And when our company commanders would tell us during boot camp, doing push-ups till our arms felt like they were falling off, sit-ups till our bellies felt like jelly, running till we were ready to puke, they would say, embrace the suck to us, because they knew that we were being built stronger for the next thing.
Right.
And if we learn to embrace the storms as they come, then we will be able to be ready for the next thing. It may be our storm, or it may be helping. I can say that right. I too am a professional speaker. Helping someone walk through that storm.
Right.
That's powerful. We at ISF work with aged out foster care kids, and the PTSD rate for foster care kids mirrors what veterans are experiencing too. And it's that same challenge of resilience and taking that hand that was dealt you and not being defined by it, but overcoming it. And
Right.
It's you who are overcomers that help others overcome.
Right, exactly. Our DIVAS is an acronym. It stands for Destined, Inspired, Victorious, Accountable Sisters. So we focus on that V part a lot.
Do that again. DIVAS?
DIVAS stands for Destined, Inspired, Victorious, Accountable Sisters.
Wow.
So we want to work with women that are seeking out the calling on their life. We want to be inspired, but we also want to inspire others. We want to look at things from a point of victory, not of victimization. We want to hold each other accountable, even in the yucky stuff, and then really be that sisterhood for each other. You may not always like us, but you got to love us because we're sisters.
Some tough love.
Tough love.
So I'm curious, how does this play out as you're coaching women in the workplaces to help them create more of a team environment, to bring themselves rather than bringing an image of who they think they need to be in those spaces? And what does it look like to have a healthy work environment?
First off, you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the big thing. A lot of the times we're looking at social media and acting like we think we should be acting. Like Hollywood tells us to act, or the guys in the boardroom tell us to act. We're feminine. We have a power that is so much stronger than we even give ourselves credit for. And we need to embrace that power, not to be aggressive or assertive, but to be firm and use our influence for good. It's an Avenger phrase, but use our influence in a way that empowers people around us, not just us, but those around us. Because as women, we're oftentimes left raising the children at home. We're leading. We are leaders. That's been the mainstay for women for decades. Now we've got more women in the corporate arena, and it can't just be do what I say, don't ask any questions because I said so. Because quite honestly, I know if I said that to my husband, he would go, you might want to check yourself. But my husband and I work together, and he's in a male-dominated environment, and there's not a lot of females. He's a plumber. There's not a lot of females in the plumbing industry. But the females that go in there and really use their femininity to present in the home with a housewife, they would much rather have a female plumber come in and be in the home with that housewife than a male plumber. The females that know their stuff can go in there and outsell a guy any day of the week. Just be good at the job.
Right.
Don't try and beat the guys. Be good at what you do. Stay the course and be true to yourself. Not everybody's a great salesperson, but then again, Zig Ziglar gave us 101, the 101 of selling, and it was, I think, 12 different steps. I can't remember how many steps it is, but you don't have to sell, here's the bottom line, sell this.
Right.
There's the relationship building. There's the
Education
enticing,
element
the education. There's so many different ways. Quit trying to be who you're not. And that's our biggest message is quit trying to be who you're not. Don't go out and idolize the Real Housewives of wherever, because a lot of the times all you're idolizing is bad behavior that's going to get you kicked out of a boardroom.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, unless you're the CEO and that's the way you're always acting, quite honestly, you're not going to have much of a staff for very long if you're acting like that.
Yeah. So what principles of the John Maxwell Library have been most impactful to you?
I'll tell you right now that the law of the lid is the one that set me free.
Okay. And what's that one?
The law of the lid talks about not serving under someone that is not willing to grow. And I've looked throughout my career and realize that there's a lot of times I'll serve people that aren't willing to grow. They just want you to do stuff to make them look good. and then whenever you start challenging them, okay, we've got you to this place, now you need to go there. No, I'm comfortable here.
Right.
And if they don't grow, then if you're under them, you really don't grow.
Exactly.
And several years ago, I was working for an organization, and I put together a beautiful plan for how we were going to adjust our workflow for our department. And it was requested by my boss, and I'd been struggling working there for a while. Kind of knew it was time for me to leave, but nobody should really want to leave working where I was working at the time. So I was sticking it out. I was being the tough girl. And after presenting this whole thing to the boss that day, he leans back in his chair and he goes, you know, all this is great. I really love all the work you put into this, and I could really see where this would benefit our department. But let's just face it, I'm 55 years old and I just don't see myself changing.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I can't even describe the feeling that fell over me at that moment, where it was just like, oh, I'm free. You know? I went home that night. I typed up my resignation letter, and the next day I turned in my resignation, you know. And I didn't just drop him like a hot potato. I stayed and made sure there was a good, strong transition. That's another thing that I think a lot of us do is we get fed up on something. We're like, I'm out of here, deuces,
we'll
you know.
down.
And I'm all about finishing strong, because if you finish strong where you're at, you're setting yourself up for bigger success where you're going. And so the law of the lid has been revolutionary for me. It's how I dictate what clients I want to take on.
Okay, so it applies to clients as well.
It applies to clients as well, because I want to ask the client where they're dreaming to. And if their dreams are like, well, I just want to write a book, then they're not the right client for me.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people out there that can help them write a book. But if they're wanting to write a book and promote it and get out there and influence and impact and help other people, then absolutely I'm on train with them for that. But I'm not a short haul trucker. I'm a long haul trucker.
Coast to coast. So tell us a little bit about what your podcast's voice and mission is.
Well, Warrior Divas, we just wanted to talk about the strength women have. We really want to address some of the negative self-talk. When we started Divas Impact, I used to say, we help women think and speak about themselves better, you know, and that was like very tongue-in-cheek, and all the guys were going, yes, you know, they need to speak better about themselves. And then you get the girls are going, yeah, we need to talk better about ourselves. But
we're so bad at that.
We're so bad at that.
Now we're talking bad about ourselves.
I know I'm the worst one about talking the best about myself, but I really need to talk about myself better if I only knew how. And so we want to break down some of the components that make women start talking negatively about themselves. It may be a fear that they've had their whole life. It may be some things that happened in their childhood that was just repeated over and over and over again, and it's a recording that just keeps playing. Well, we want to break the record for them. We want to help them overcome the defeat they felt, like in that time after my assault where I felt like a trash receptacle. You know, how do I get from feeling like a trash receptacle to feeling like a diva again? And what does that road look like? It's not an easy road. Right. It's not a fun road a lot of the times getting from there. And a lot of times you just go right back to Oscar the Grouch and sitting back in that trash receptacle again. But being a diva and having that goal helps you realize that there's so much more out there and so much more that you can see and do. And once you've been here, you recognize it in other women a lot easier. You recognize it in their walk. You recognize it in the way they talk. You recognize it in their eye contact. One of the things I like to do is I go into an event and I like to shake people's hands and look them straight in the eye. And if they don't look me in the eye, I hold them. I hold on to their hand a little bit longer until they look me in the eye, because I want them to know that I see them. Because that's the biggest struggle most of the women that we face. That's the first hurdle we have to get over, is they need to feel like they're seen. A lot of the women I've dealt with, they may be entering back into the career path after raising kids, and they don't even know how to hope and dream anymore, because they've been fostering their children's dreams and supporting their spouse's dreams for so long that they don't know how to dream for themselves. And so now they're just working here just because it's something to do.
Right.
Okay, that's great. If it's what you enjoy, if you just need the companionship, there's nothing wrong with that. Being a housewife and raising kids, there's nothing wrong with that. And society nowadays is trying to tell women that it's something wrong to want to stay home with kids.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's not. We need people staying home, dads and moms staying home with kids, whatever that looks like. But the growth of going through, I see you. Now I want to hear you. I want to know your story. And as they start talking their story, I tell people it's more of a Criminal Minds mindset. They start telling a story and I interrupt them. Okay, well, let's talk about that just a little bit longer. Because they want to just glance right past it because they're stuffing and suppressing. As we start talking about that a little bit more, then we start realizing that the patterns that they've built up in their life all have a silver cord of commonality.
Right.
And it can have a positive or a negative influence. And they may be stuck on the negative side of it right now, but how do we get them onto that positive side?
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm sure we could spend much more time with Angie as we kind of reach our time limit for today. But fortunately, you do have your own podcast and website. So how can people get plugged into your podcast and your content?
We have our divasimpact.com page. We also have our Divas Impact landing page, Facebook page, that you can join us there. We have a group for women that's called Women Equipping Women. We have a wonderful group of women in there that have been through some stuff, have helped other women through things. It's not just a one and done guru group.
Right.
We have helped many, many, many women with the group of women that we have in our tribe. And if you want to get into that group and have those private conversations and then schedule one-on-one time with the people that you resonate with, then that's absolutely possible inside that group. And we are starting to bring out more and more of our magazine, and we've got a couple of books in the works right now. So we've got a lot of things on the
Plenty
agenda
of ways to plug in.
At whatever level they feel comfortable at first. We don't want to come on hard,
right?
Because we don't want to run them off.
Self-paced,
but
right.
we want to get them in there and get them talking and feel comfortable to be able to share their story, because their story matters.
Yeah.
A lot of the women that suffer today suffer alone in the darkness because they don't think anybody else has experienced anything like what they've experienced. So when we share our stories, we open up a path for them to walk out of that dark place.
Right. Well, the last question we like to ask our guests is if there's a particular book or other podcast or some training that's inspiring you today to continue your journey helping others.
I have a book that I refer back to all the time, and it's just a random book. It's called I just went blank on it. It's by Nicole Johnson.
Okay.
But it's actually a devotional book. And she has a thing, the top 10 signs of why you may need a break.
Oh, okay.
And, it's one of them is you yelled at your pastor last Sunday or ever, and it really just helps you stop and realize when you need to take pauses in your life.
Okay.
And develop from that. And then, of course, anything Father John C. Maxwell,
right.
my friend and mentor, writes. I'm always referring his books, but The Fresh Brewed Life is the name of the book by Nicole Johnson. I knew it would come to me. I was looking at the coffee mug going, it's something about
There's
that.
There's a clue there.
But it's a great book to help you slow down and breathe.
Great. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for the insights and sharing your story with us this morning. Well, we'll turn it back over to Dr. Blair for our trivia.
Yeah, we were kind of one of the leading founders of General Motors, instrumental during the crash of 29. Any takers?
I have no idea.
No idea.
See, if I mentioned Frigidaire, you'd know that brand. Chevrolet, you'd mention that brand. General Motors, but very few people know the name of William Crapo Billy Durant.
Durant. Is there any relation to the Durant car dealerships now out in Fort Worth? I wonder.
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
That would be interesting.
That would be
to find
interesting
out.
to find out.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Durant named the car. Fun, great interview, and boy, as we were just listening to you as an ISF director and working with these kids, I just, I can't wait for them to hear this podcast because it'll inspire and help them. So thank you, Angie,
Awesome.
for doing that. Fun days for ISF too, Tyler. Why don't you tell a little bit about our upcoming event coming up?
I can't believe it. We are a week from Saturday. November 2nd is our biggest event of the year. The Carrington Group, ISF, holds a really special place in our heart. It's the Taste of Chamberlain's Gala, November 2nd at the Belo Mansion. Unbelievable food, entertainment, fellowship, but most importantly, for a great cause, helping our foster care kids. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. So encourage folks to go out to ISF site, that's SITE.org, and check it out and get some tickets. Come bring friends, family, colleagues, and just come experience what I think is a pretty powerful night at the Belo Mansion. So that's, again, ISFsite.org, coming up November 2nd, the Taste of Chamberlain's Gala.
Yeah, inspiring things going on at the gala. I'm looking forward to attending again this year.
Event.
Well, again, it's been great having Angie on the podcast with us today, and can't thank her enough for her time and her wisdom that she shared with us. And folks, I want to remind you that if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, then you are a leader.
Legends in Leadership is brought to you by the Carrington Group. Carrington Group is a family office with a passion for helping business leaders and their families make smart choices and fulfill their highest aspirations. To learn more about the Carrington Group, visit their website at www.carringtonfo.com or Google Carrington Group Dallas, Texas. ISF is committed to leadership development for aged-out foster care and orphaned youth. ISF's mission is to transform these youth into tomorrow's leaders with scholarships, mentoring, and leadership training. To learn more about ISF, visit their website at isfsite.org or Google International Student Foundation to learn more.
Securities offered through Regulus Advisors, LLC, member FINRA/SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Regal Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors are affiliated entities. Carrington Group and this broadcast are independent of Regulus Advisors and Regal Investment Advisors.